We have power in numbers if we have action behind those, those talks and those tweets and anything that you're looking for us to do, because the information is so readily available that we should be doing way much more than our prior generation. But we'll talk more about that. Me and Bobby, I almost threw my computer on the floor because I don't know, man.
First of all, your computer is on the floor.
Yeah.
You don't have a desk.
Yeah. This is that. Yeah. Young Pira Overdilla, behind the mic like the will of a vehicular killer. The thready.
Everything you're saying is super rehearsed, so I don't really buy it. But
it's not rehearsed.
No.
Meanwhile, she has a script like this. I'm thinking about everything that I did. My parents.
Got the prompter. The prompter got stuck for a second. But,
she's scrolling on yeah.
Just well spoken, okay?
What do you think is one of the challenges that people are going to be facing once this whole pandemic kind of ends? Because now I think funding has dwindled dramatically for a lot of businesses. Businesses are cutting their workforce. I know for me personally, I was over here ordering banners, pens, pencils. I'm like, all right, listen, I gotta save a little bit of the resources that I have and try to focus or reposition it to different events that I still want to do to help the community. So what do you think are some of the challenges if somebody is still passionate enough to try to do some of these events, but they feel like they devalued in the sense of this whole pandemic because everybody's taking a major hit?
Yeah.
How do I position something now that the world is back to normal and I don't know exactly what is the value of what I can bring because everybody's at a lower scale at the moment?
Right. I think you have to take into account who you want to ask, because there's some companies that are flourishing due to the pandemic, and there's some who are taking major hits. If you look at Amazon is that girl now. Amazon made so much money, it's ridiculous.
Amazon went to DR, got her butt done, got a face lift.
Yeah.
She's that girl. And then there's some companies who are still struggling, trying to find out how they can save money and where they can save money at, and what part of budget can they cut so they don't have to fire employees. And if they have to let go of employees, and it's a lot, it's hard to deal with, and it's hard to really even think what the next step is going to be. But I think we have to take into account that it's something that hasn't been seen before in our lifetime.
Yeah.
And we're not really going to have a new normal. Our new normal is going to be literally new. It's not going to be the same. You think about after 9/11, how we have to go through the airport by giving a blood sample. Before that, we could just go and say wave to our parents leaving right at the gate. Mm-hmm. Now you can't do that post 9/11. So now we got to think about what's outside going to look like. If people are going to go to events, are they going to want to go to events? If everyone's going to have a mask, are they going to limit the amount of people who go to events? Are people even going to be scared to go? Is it going to be PTSD when someone mentions 2020? There's going to be a lot that we have to think about in regards to what the new way of being outside is going to be like. Okay. And I think a lot of companies are trying to figure out and find out their space. And what I've been recommending to people is look at what they can do digitally, because digital doesn't require you to be outside. Everyone can do it from their computer. And a lot of companies who didn't have their digital strategy before are scrambling to find it now. And they want to be prepared just in case there's something else that happens again. So if you have any way to make whatever your project is digital in some way, that's probably the route I would suggest people going, because brands are going to want to find some visibility. And if we can't go outside, what's the next best way to do it? Social media, online conference. I've seen people kind of taking their live conferences and using the platform hopin.to, and they've just been hosting virtual conferences. There's even a virtual vendor table where a sponsor could literally set up a virtual table, and they can go in and they can just put in whatever. But people are sponsoring, brands are sponsoring it. So if a brand wants visibility and you have the platform to do it, I would definitely say start thinking and pivoting into digital. I have clients who are still focused on doing some external, outside events in 2021. But I have some who are a little bit on the fence about it because they don't know what 2021 is going to look like. So
for sure.
I have some people who are planning to go forward and pitch by Q4. And then I have some people who are like, you know what, let's put it on pause because I'm not sure what the world's going to be like in 2021. My suggestion is, I think we have some time between now and 2021 to get over this thing in some kind of way. So I've just been telling people, if you think you're going to have an event in 2021, send your pitch by Q4, because Q4 is when they're creating budgets. The budgets are going to be reset again. They'll be able to evaluate, I guess, whatever their profits or their loss was this year. They'll be able to assess how much money can I put into sponsorship? How much money can I put into giving to nonprofits? Because usually companies do have like a charitable sector where they'll do the nonprofits. I also think people have to recognize that even if they are doing a nonprofit, there's some sort of profit feeling behind it. So don't think it's just all free, because they want to get something out of it, whether it's brand visibility, whether it's engagement with your audience, they're getting something out of it. So they can write it off, but they're going to get their money.
Now, just to wrap up on Business One, right?
So we
got 8 businesses.
Oh my God.
You got the hair business as well. She makes clay dolls as well. But to wrap up with Business One, for you, sorry, but follows watching.
You coughing?
No.
Yeah.
I think I'm in the basement. I'm quarantined. Been here for like 2 weeks. But listen, edit that out. Edit that out. They're like, oh, I ain't gonna watch this without a mask. But, what criteria do you look for your clients? Like, what's your quintessential, like, I can get you some funding client, so that we some sponsorship. Like, what do they need? You know, so that in case we know people that are maybe on the cusp of, you know, getting sponsorship and kind of blowing up, like what would they need? What would a nice client for you look like?
A good client for me would be someone who has whatever their project is, their project has some weight to it. Like if it's something that's far reaching, or something that actually has some sort of impact on like a community, or some kind of reach beyond themselves. I think sometimes people come up with projects and they love them so much because it's their baby, but it's not really that good. I like those projects where it's like a conference that might be like a business conference or a conference for wellness, something where people are actually going to attend or actually going to be looking for. Those are the clients that I know would most likely get some sort of sponsorship, just because they have a brand and they have something that people want to attach themselves to. I always get the question about social media reach, and that's definitely helpful if you do have influence on social media, but it's not the only thing that'll get you sponsors. If your event makes sense and your event is meaty enough, then you can get a sponsor.
There's a lot of things that people don't think about when they want to jump into business, because I do have conversations with a few friends that are interested in starting a business, but they do have the fear of taking that first leap. And, you know, they have a lot of ideas, but there's so many different resources available that can help them propel and, you know, become the person they want to be. So I think what she said is actually very informative, and it can kind of help a lot of people knowing that, listen, you ain't got to have $1 million, you know, you could just start
a marketing budget though to afford her. You don't need a marketing budget. So just don't think she's going to get you a sponsorship. No, she needs the money up front, guys. So
she needs the money up front. Gotcha.
Up front. Now, that check.
Now, all good stuff. So what's the second business venture that you started?
So I also started I feel like it's a business somewhat, but it's more of like a passion project for me, and it's called Black Girls Market. And I started that because I realized there were a lot of Black women and Black girls who would come to me and ask me about like my job in marketing, how I got there, what I did to get there. And I felt like there wasn't enough representation of Black women in marketing. And I think because of that, it felt like Lily was the only one. I know I wasn't the only one in marketing, in Black girl in marketing there, but there's so few of us that people just knew marketing, Lily, and they would come to me. And it's like, and I'm like, well, if these many people are asking me, I can imagine what it's like for that one Black girl in other companies who people are reaching out to kind of understand what they're doing and how they actually get there. So I'm like, you know what? Let me get all the Black women I know who work at companies like Google, YouTube, all those kind of stuff, and bring them all together, and we can just kind of like have a collective of us. And I wanted to use that as like a way to educate people who want to get into marketing, educate ourselves to keep up to date with the latest marketing stats and all that stuff. And then also I had a tenet to reach out to college students, because I know there's a lot of college students who are majoring in marketing or in the business school, and they want to leave and they want to graduate and potentially get internships or know how to move up there. And I think having a face that looks like them is definitely something that I would have wanted when I graduated and went to start working. I would have wanted someone who looked like me in a role that I wanted to be in, to be able to talk to and just ask them questions. And I wanted to be able to help them potentially get internships with the companies that we work for, and almost just make it like a mentorship program, but still like a way for us to just talk about the things we go through, being the only one.
So are you embedded within the companies that you work for? So I know you have marketing representatives at Google, YouTube, and other companies. Are these conversations that you're having within your marketing department at work? Like, hey, listen, I'm part of this segment called Black Girls Market, and I'd like to, I guess have an intern or whatever the case may be, potentially get a hire or at least an interview. Are these the questions, or is this dialogue happening today, or is this something that you plan on developing?
It's kind of something I did organically anyway, but it's where I want it to go. And I think just me having connections with like people who maybe work in HR at these companies to help kind of feed the funnel in, because at my company now, I do know the person who does work in diversity recruiting. So if there's like a Black girl who I know who might have reached out, is looking for a job, I can always help and kind of facilitate and funnel that way. And I wanted it to make it like Lily's at all these big companies, because I know there's always one Black girl who's always the person who's like trying to get everybody in. So if I can have a collective of me's at all these big companies, we can definitely funnel in those people who need to be in those spaces and get them the interviews. Even if they don't get the job, they get a chance to interview. And I think that's the differentiator, because sometimes they don't get picked, they don't get the job. Maybe it's the school they went to, maybe it's their grades. Just sometimes we just don't get picked. And I think having another voice in there, an advocate internally, is definitely something that I wanted to be. And that's kind of why I haven't left corporate, because I feel like I still want to be that voice for people who are coming in and help out.
Do you feel like you have an obligation to be that voice? Like, I know for me, right, growing up, my mom is big in the church, and I don't know if it's most African cultures, but, African cultures is like, you see a kid in the village, everybody's going to raise him, right? So some of those traits, they trickle down throughout the generations. And I think it did with me as well, because I saw how my parents treated their peers, and I see how they treated my cousins and, siblings, and it goes on and on and on and on. So I think some of those traits kind of like stayed with me. So with my obligation to start my nonprofit, I feel like, I was obligated because, this is something my culture did, you know what I mean? So where do you find your obligation in terms of wanting to help, these Black women who are, desperate to be successful and striving for success?
Yeah. So fun fact, both of my parents are pastors, and we have a church. So
pastors, woo!
So I'm a double PK. Part of that does come into play also when I think about, because I've always been serving. I've always been in a family of servants, and I've always grown up that way, and I still do. So for me, I hate to see someone get passed up off of something stupid. And I always think about even when I was at Verizon, anytime I got up to another level, I always told people I left, I'd be like, look, if I get to another thing, you coming with me. And I always took a lot of people with me, just because I felt like I helped them excel in their job where we were currently. I moved on. If I have the opportunity to help someone, I can. And that was always like my MO. Regardless. If I can help somebody, I'm always going to do it. And I think I feel like it's almost my duty to help Black women, because Black women help me. So why not be an advocate when I can? Haiti is Little Africa of the Western Hemisphere. Only because I feel like our country is probably the most African of the diaspora out of all of them, just because due to the length of time we were in slavery. But I find a lot of similarities between all the things that we do. One being the WhatsApp chains that we all get.